talking about. We're meant to be on our next chapter, but Nick was just like vehement. He wanted to talk about politics and
Yeah, man.
vaccinations and all the stuff that everyone likes to talk about. And so I thought, you know what? Doesn't hurt to give your ratings a bit of a boost, you know?
So,
Just
firstly, let's choose a title that we know is going to be clickbait.
all
So, what
right,
are we going to call it?
all right.
That's right.
So, we're going to call it All
The
the
Answer.
Answers. Yeah, exactly. All the answers on
Yeah.
whether the vaccine is effective, whether Christians should take it, whether you should wear face masks at church, whether vaccine passports
The Christian view
are good.
of vaccines and COVID restrictions.
There we go.
The Christian view. The
The
last
only
word on.
Christian view.
The last word on.
Jeff Durbin refuted.
Yes, I like that.
Jeff
Everyone
Durbin
wrong but
rebutted.
us on these issues.
So, all right, now I had not heard. Okay, but actually, I'm gonna stop talking right now. I'm gonna hand over to you. You tell us about what we're even talking about, because
Okay, great.
probably,
So, I mean, there's obviously a little
let
backstory
me
here.
just say
Yeah.
before I hand over there, I know nothing about what you're gonna say. Neither does Andre, and so there might well be the
There might
question
be some
raised
editing
somewhere.
afterwards where a lot of what I said gets chopped out. Right,
Tell us
so
about-
I mean,
so,
I'm not
yeah.
sure what you guys have had in your churches. We're all pastors, so I mean, you probably had some individuals who are on the internet. They've got their finger on the pulse of certain ministries. There's a lot of vocalization out there. I mean, we're in a context at the moment where there's a lot of polarization. You know, the world's getting further and further apart. Tribalism is a real great way to describe what's going on in the world today. Amateurism, you heard that phrase? Amateurism is where everyone is a professional because they got Google and they go and research. You know, they've all done their research, you know, not PhD research, but they've done their research.
Yeah.
We're seeing a democratization of knowledge, and with everyone having a public platform, there's just a multitude of opinions out there. And, you know, anger versus anxiety. And the issue is, what is now our Christian response going to be on the issue of, and so here you could probably just put a number of things, and they all sort of are connected, and yet we want to draw some lines between them. So the one is, you know, COVID lockdowns and restrictions on religious worship, vaccine passports in the workplace and in the church, masks and whether we should wear them in church or not, civil liberties, and you know, whether does it have a religious foundation or is it purely civil? And so there's a lot of the stuff going around, and of course there are ministries that are talking out. One of the things that I put you guys in contact with was the Ezekiel Declaration, which was a statement made by some Australian Christians where they it's called the Ezekiel Declaration because they quote that verse about being a watchman.
Yes, that's where they lost me as well.
We've got to be a watchman. We've got to stand up.
Yeah.
And there are thousands of people that have signed this. Thousands of people in ministry positions who've signed this. And so that's one of the things that's out there. I trust you guys have probably read that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that got thrown my
morning.
way. Good. Yeah.
Like I read it as in like I looked at the website.
Good. You saw the title.
I saw the heading.
I saw the call to be a watchman. I saw a lot of names.
And I'm now an expert on it.
That's true.
That's
I
right.
Googled it. I'm good.
And then another thing that I thought was interesting and probably would be good for us to discuss was a statement on religious exemption from Apologia and their church. So that's with James White, Jeff Durbin.
Yes.
So Theonomist 0.5, not 2.0. Theonomy Light. So these guys have got a certain perspective on law, and where so because Christ is the Lord over every area of life, every civil issue becomes a religious issue, and these guys are issuing religious exemptions for their people, for the workplace, on the grounds of conscience. Yes, I thought it would be great for us to, I guess, just ruminate on these things, share some opinions, bring a two kingdoms perspective to some of the madness that's out there.
I feel like I need to disclose from the beginning that I actually did sign a petition.
Oh, there's the door. Leave.
Just gonna drop that in there right
I
now.
mean, bro,
However,
Nick
So-
signed
so,
all the
if
petitions. Nick
we're
was like on
compa-
the news for signing petitions.
Yeah.
Nick's like the poster child for petitions.
If we're gonna confess sins, so right now I'm part of a group of pastors that's looking at a legal case against the government for restricting religious worship.
Oh, now.
Yeah.
If anyone from the New Zealand government is watching this has not been encouraged by myself. I've had nothing to do with this. I'm
And
not
I would
part
like
of this
to.
coup d'etat.
I would also like to say that I have no part in this man's affairs.
I know the New Zealand government is going to be watching this, even if only
Yeah,
through the lens of an
that's
Well, we know
algorithm.
China's watching because we're on Zoom.
That's
That
right.
aside,
That's true.
Well,
Wow, look,
there we go.
China just popped up in my
preach the
Google
gospel.
search.
It's how we get into
That's-
China, guys. Come on.
But the petition that I signed had a different sort of flavor to the ones that, these declarations, the Ezekiel declaration, the one by Durban, and that it was basically saying, as Christians, we really want to be submissive to our government and pray for our government and be model citizens.
Oh
in the
yes, I
government's
saw that one.
eyes.
I saw that one.
And however, we do want to request that
Yeah.
if like strict measures like church shutdowns and things like that are being required of us, that we first let them know that is a big sacrifice for us. And so even though it's a sacrifice that we're happy to make when it's warranted, we do ask that you would supply some sort of evidence or rationale for it. So, because it's such a big deal, you can't just keep saying to churches you can't meet without supplying some kind of evidence or backup or rationale for it. And so, and at least to say to them, we don't want to be in rebellion, but if you continually say to us we can't meet without supplying a rationale for it, then at some point rebellion is going to be on the cards, because you're asking us to make a huge sacrifice without any information or any rationale for it or evidence for it. And so the thing was saying, please, Mr. Boris, we want to do the right thing. We want to be model citizens. We want to submit, but just understand the big sacrifice that we're making for you, and as part of our obedience to God. And understand that if we start to feel like this is trivial or not based on some sort of genuine common good, then we are going to start to get a little bit antsy about it.
Yeah,
I actually remember
That was
reading
the
that.
nature
I
of it.
actually thought that was really well worded for what it's worth.
That's why I signed it, because I
Yeah.
thought of it wasn't sort of like you should be submitting to the Bible, Mr. Boris. You should be at church on Sunday with us. But
Yeah,
it wasn't one of
yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
I thought it was reasonable.
Well, one thing I was going to say there is that, like, I remember feeling, oh, well, there was a distinct impression, and maybe this is just a point to make anyway, that it was the actual individual ministers who were making this their voice heard, that, and you were left under no impression that they were speaking on behalf of their denominations or churches. It was just, it was their particular plight that they were voicing, and very respectfully, and really in a very exemplary way, I thought. So I mean, what's the problem with that? Nothing at all. But I suppose when it starts becoming, as you say, a direct prophetic address to the minister, or when you start speaking for groups and specifically your church, and they haven't really signed up for that themselves,
Yep.
That's when you start getting into difficult water.
So I mean, maybe let me start with the court case that we're looking at, put some of the rationale in there, where I'm at in my thinking, and then maybe just put a couple of issues out there, and maybe we could put them in order of priority, and then maybe talk about how, as the church, we should probably distinguish each one, because I don't know what you guys are feeling, but as people are polarizing and as they're gathering into tribes, it's almost like you can almost prophesy what the issues are. That the people who are anti-vaxxers. Have you heard the new joke? If you're an anti-vaxxer, you won't get it. So that was it.
Oh boy.
Moving on. So
that was a joke that I really needed to be paying attention to and not trying to find that other petition while I was listening to you.
So what was I saying? All right. So you've got these tribes. On the one side, you've got you can predict exactly what the issues are going to be. You've got anti-vaxxers, you've got no masks, you've got civil liberties issues, you've got people who are pushing for civil disobedience. You've got they're taking a bunch of political issues and civil issues and medical issues and big pharma issues and government heavy-handedness issues and church issues, and they're just all in there together as one big ball. And some of those issues I'm very sympathetic with. If I was voting as a citizen of New Zealand, I could pick sides on some of those issues. But as a church and as a pastor of a church, I guess we've got to negotiate our response very differently. And we've just gone around the block again with 4 weeks of lockdown. Mike, you're worse off than I was, but we've had to, what do we do with our buildings? Do we have 50 people? Do we have 100 people? Do we divide it into 2 services? Are we allowed to have the Lord's Supper? Are we allowed to serve food? Do people have to wear face masks? All of these questions were forced upon us again. Andre, you've gone around this block a year ago already, so these things are old news for you. But in many ways, it's the first time for us.
But not only has he gone. See, here's the part that I get tripped on what you were saying there is, I was thinking about Andre's situation. Not only was it a while ago, but man, it was forever. I mean, you guys dealt with such. I mean, we haven't even come close to their.
No, we haven't.
So that makes me think that what are we even complaining about?
Well, I do. I also was thinking if you think you've reached breaking point now,
dude,
it took me a lot longer to reach breaking point.
The first time we had lockdown was 7 weeks, and I was near breaking point then as well. So I guess my thresholds. Make me the John MacArthur guy.
All right. So actually, what we need to do is we need to say you're on the wrong podcast. You need to be going to the One Age Sojourner guys.
Yeah. No Lasting City? What are those guys? Maybe they'll have me.
Totally. And then what we have to do is have a debate, not a discussion, but a debate.
Debate. Now, well,
you promised that you'd heckle me, so let me lay it out.
Right, cool.
Okay,
so you guys can heckle away. So here we are. We have a high theology of the gathered church. We believe that we are to the regulator principle. We believe in the means of grace. We believe we have a high view of the gathered church. So you need your elders present, you need a representative number of the congregation present so that you can baptize, do the Lord's Supper, and church discipline. So when is a group of believers the church? It's when you have enough of the people and the leadership present that you could do church discipline, baptism, and the Lord's Supper. And so we've been unable to be the gathered church. So we've had, things like Zoom. We've had all these other things which have been helpful. But now with the extended and around the block again, and just unevenness and not fair-handedness with the church in the way in which certain rules are handed out, which I think has happened this time around. I'm now looking at the situation in the same way that Paul looked at slavery in the first century. If you can get your freedom, get it. So here, can we get our freedom? Can we ask the government with lawyers to say, hey, your constitution and your Bill of Rights says this. We think you violated that. We want to make a legal case to that end. Could we please have our liberties back? And so in the name of, if you can gain your freedom, gain it, as Paul says to the slaves in 1 Corinthians 7. That's the sort of mentality. That's where I'm at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, my trying to see it from the other side, trying to see it from the point of view of, let's assume that there isn't some sort of evil agenda to take away religious freedom in New Zealand. And I'm not taking that for granted. I'm just saying, let's just work on that assumption and assume the best.
Yeah.
Then what you've got from the other side is that, listen, I don't want to take away your religious liberties. I'm just asking you to shut down for 4 weeks. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to matter. You're going to look back 15 years from now and think, man, those 4 weeks, were horrible, maybe, but let's, it hasn't been great. We've had 15 more years of just normal church services. So it's a defined period of time. Where it started to get a bit antsy for us was when we were told a certain date, and then it just kept rolling. And that's when we started to sign the petition, because we're like, listen, when you say, 2 months of lockdown, and we're like, that's tough, but okay, in the grand scheme of things, 2 months, 8 weeks, we'll do this. It's for the great common good. We understand it's not ideal for anybody, but if this is going to really help the NHS and the public health service, and nurses aren't going to have to make on-the-spot decisions about who gets to live or die, I get it, right? We'll just, for the sake of everything, it won't be, I agree with you, everything you've said about church, by the way, I think that's right. But I do think that, in these sorts of special or unusual circumstances, it's not like it doesn't count or that there's no benefit to Christians if they're doing it online. It's not ideal. It's not the same. It's a poor substitute, but it's not like God doesn't make allowances for that.
Amen. No arguments there. Yeah.
So,
I guess
exactly.
what's featured into the feeling in New Zealand is, okay, so a Delta variant has broken out.
Yeah.
Okay. And how effective is the vaccine from stopping you from getting COVID? The vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID. It stops you from dying of COVID. So 9 times out of 10. So the population is getting vaccinated, but because another variant came out, lockdown kicked into place because the vaccine doesn't stop the spread. And so the question that comes up is, what about the next variant? And then what about the next variant? And then what about the next variant? And so in order to stop a domino effect, in order to stop a precedent, in order to encourage the government to recognize that we are obligated to worship the Lord as the gathered people, and they can't play fast and loose with the church, shouldn't we pursue our legal opportunities? Now, let me make a distinction here, because if I lived in the 1st century and Rome was my government, I wouldn't have the opportunity unless I was a Roman citizen. If I lived in China at the moment, I wouldn't have this opportunity. But because I live in New Zealand, there is a possibility. And so shouldn't I, if I can gain my freedom, shouldn't I pursue it? So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a few themes for me. I think it sounds like it does come down to an individual sense of how bad it's been, or how bad it currently is, and that sort of thing. So
and granted, my threshold is personal and low.
Right. So, and on the other end of the spectrum, you could have someone who's like, I mean, dude, I'm always down for a vaccination. Always. I mean, in fact, if you're not having yours, I'll have yours.
I've been I'm halfway through my vaccination process.
I'm just like, I'm a human pin cushion. I love the things. I collect them. I started collecting them when I went to India for the first time. I just haven't stopped. So if there's a new one, I want it. Like,
I didn't get the rabies one, but there you go.
I got the rabies one.
Dude.
That was like my bet. That's my prize. That's my prize. Maybe the Japanese elephantitis was the only one that took that one out. But anyway,
I got that one too. I think. I did. Yeah,
it was expensive guy, but who knows? Yeah. Chances like 1 in 3 million billion. Anyway, so there's there's that, and then I don't know, lockdowns. I mean, dude, the words being stretched don't even cross my mind. I'm like thinking maybe if I had to go through what Andre went through, I think that would tax me. But even then, I'd be like, okay, well, whatever. So I'm just thinking we've got it so good. So I suppose my whole thing is like in the realm of deep, profound thankfulness, at the moment. So there's no knee jerk, there's no instinct, there's no anything to kind of want to do any of that. But let's say your threshold is on the other end and you've got a different circumstance, and it's very understandable that could be the case for any number of reasons. Then we just have to roll with those things that are just set principles that we all agree on. Number one, and you mentioned this already, and I think this is something even like the most hard out, Two Kingdom guys would gladly admit or concede to or even promote, and that's the democratic nature of us, pluralistic society today. This is good. This is different to Rome. This is like the best of a bad situation in governments historically, but it's a real privilege, and we should absolutely make use of it. And you can't just say that you're back in Daniel's day, under a monarch and superpower, and you can't just say that you're back in Rome's. Maybe Rome had a bit more comparison in the sense of a citizen being able to have some recourse. But yeah, we are just in a very real different space, and democracy is real, and we should absolutely use that. So that's the one thing. The other thing is just those plain staple issues where, church is organization, church is organism. Again, even the Kuyperians they came up with that, so Kuyper came up with that. So it's not even that's a Two Kingdom thing. That's just basically allowing the church not to get derailed with this stuff, which is our democratic right as individuals, as citizens in the world. But I think the big thing we want to protect in all of this, and this is, I suppose, my do all and end all, to be honest, when it comes to how I would go about it. So let me throw this out there, and you guys can see what you think. That despite the different, because there are just going to be differing approaches to this, and we've just conceded as much now. It's unreasonable to think that won't be the case in your own congregation or in your own church, no matter how solid you are and no matter how together you are doctrinally. People are just going to be different about that. So it becomes like a political issue, and it becomes an individual issue of conscience to some degree. I mean, thinking of things as they are currently. Obviously, when we cross a line, things change and so forth. So that means your role then, in church is to create an embassy of heaven, as we always talk about, a place where you will find, refuge from all of that, a place where the world will look at that you experience at church and go, what the heck? I don't understand it. How do differing people, those who have been vaccinated and those who have not, how do they just dwell in such unbelievable unity? And the point is they can't understand it because, only those who are going to taste heaven understand it, and that's the whole thing I think I would really want to preserve as much as possible. So I think there are ways to do what you're talking about and preserve that, it's just you have to be careful. I take Van Drunen's caution very seriously as well, where he says, just as a pastor, you do have less liberty than others do on this issue. Because
can I talk into that? Because I mean, it's so let me be the guy who defends restrictions and lockdowns and submitting to the government now, because
because we were all getting a little bit worried. So
I mean, I think in probably all of our churches, we'd have some people who are listening to those stories where people are civil disobedience, submissively being unsubmissive, and they're choosing to continue to worship. And they're looking at that as a real option for ourselves. And so here I am, I'm the pastor who's trying to lead a congregation. I've already told them in the first instance that, we should submit to the government, and we can do it in good conscience because there are some good reasons in play. And so they want to push. And so one of the conversations I have with folk like this is I put them in my shoes. I've done this with my children and I do it with my members. But put yourself in my shoes. You're the boss. All right. And in your congregation, you've got people who believe that it is wrong, like yourselves, to obey the restrictions because you've got to honor God. And then you've got other people who believe it's right to submit to the government. Now, as a pastor, do I have the right to come to my congregation and command them all to do one thing when they're not ready to do it yet? I can't do that, like you say. And so when it comes to my role as an elder, I've got to lead, not rule, in that sense.
I mean, we're talking about things that are not obviously clearly stated. So no one's bowing down to Caesar, and I got no problem telling people not to bow down to Caesar when that moment comes. And so forth. So when it's there, the sermon I'm preaching is, okay, choose your favorite book because you're going to jail. Let's get ready, but I'm taking my Septuagint. That's all I'm saying. And that's the sermon. And I'm ready to preach that sermon and ready to inform. But the difference there is it's something that you can tell people to do because your authority is not based on their particular reading of something or conscience involved.
I completely agree with you. My example's less clear.
Okay.
My example is the guy who just thinks we should be not observing government lockdowns and we should just be worshiping, versus those who think we should be cooperating with lockdown because it's the loving thing to do and it's a good witness. So you got these two views in your congregation. And so as a pastor, I can't just, my personal feeling, I'm the guy with the low threshold.
But as a pastor,
I lean one way.
As a pastor, you can say, listen, we're not all going to agree, but let's everybody sort of calm down and let's try and work through this together. So let's keep talking about it. And praying about it and thinking it through and examining the scriptures together, and let's try and act unitedly on this. Whether that is in a kind of we're just going to agree to disagree and be happy with it, some people wearing masks, some people not wearing masks. But I do think though it also depends on the issue. So when it comes to not gathering for church, well, ultimately the elders of the church are going to have to make a call on whether your church gathers or not. And so you can't really gather not in submission to your elders. So I think at a practical
So
level,
what if
if
your
your
elders
elders,
call you together, not in submission to your government? And some
yes,
people think that they'd be
if your
sinning in
elders
doing
do
so.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. If your
See, that's
elders,
that's that's the issue. So I mean, in the last lockdown, there are always situations in the church where you might have people who are lonely, people that have just been diagnosed with cancer, people that that are going through difficult times, and folk in the congregation are feeling the pressure of not being able to be the church and gather around people like that, and so they want to disobey the government in order to be the church. And so, because we were put right back at the highest levels of lockdown, alert level 4, and then alert level 3, where we weren't even allowed to leave our homes, basically, or visit anyone. And so, in those instances, there was a lot of ill feeling towards the government, and a strong call for us to be the church, because we were missing out on so much.
So one of the things that has crossed my mind a few times, even as you say that, that was like what, a week or two? What is that? Was it about a week that we had to stay at home, or 2 weeks?
Well, Auckland's longer because
yeah, all right. So Auckland's had the longest spiel, and they're what, like a month now, also. But what it had crossed my mind, it sort of gets to the root of the issue in the minds of many, I think, in that if it was the Black Plague, that was going around. I mean, just imagine, it would have been pretty terrifying to see that, take hold of someone. I think everyone would be all too happy to stay at home, right? Like there'd be no quibble. Everyone would be like,
unless you're a Puritan pastor.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know that we got Puritans around these days. I think basically everyone's just going to be like, no thanks, I'll stay at home.
Yeah.
But same things maybe if you come along with some sort of like vaccine or cure and going, listen, we've got it. Here it is. You won't die of this terrible thing that will rip you apart in a matter of hours. And anyone that needs to read about that, go read about it, because it was terrifying. It's hard to believe that actually happened. But anyway, so the issue then, I think, is that we're not, you don't see the Black Plague. This is so you look around and you sort of hear the numbers and you feel the distrust, and so now it's like the naked, we have to trust the authority issue, rather than I'm getting this empirical evidence of what I'm being fed before me at all times, happy to comply. And I think that's probably bringing out the unique bit of tension. Yeah, like, am I being abused? Is there some sort of manipulation of power play?
Will the vaccine,
I can't trust anyone, and it's feeding into an already anti-authoritarian sort of vibe.
And I've had to work through a lot of those things with folk in the congregation, and we've been able to meet a few times already, because we got to alert level 2 a lot sooner. And one of the things I just really felt at this time, so much more than the first time, just really sensing that people were very unhappy with this lockdown. People have fallen out of love with Jacinda. There's a lot less tolerance. There's actually even outside of Christianity, even just in the community at large, if we decided to do civil disobedience, I think there'd be a lot more sympathy for it now, as opposed to in the first lockdown, where no one could even conceive that it wasn't the loving thing to do.
Yeah.
So that whole thing's fallen away.
I think it does make sense if you frame it in the issue of look, we are commanded to meet together as a church. We can't do that because of the thing. Then there's a genuine realm, for conscience and for making use of the legal things available to us to fight it. I mean, again, I think if you have a restricted period of time, I wouldn't bother, because it's like at the point now where it's very unlikely in the UK we're going to go back into another lockdown. Whatever happens, there could be restrictions again, but it's never going to be a don't go to church again. We assume, that's we're taking on good faith that's going to be the case.
Our government has said we'll never go to alert level 4 again.
Right.
But we might go to alert level 3, which is church is only allowed 10 people. Or the last alert level 3 we had was the same as alert level 4. We couldn't go to church anyway. So
I think another important distinction, though, you mentioned, like, we're commanded to meet, we can't meet during restrictions. I suppose that doesn't hit me quite as it should, because I mean, it's definitely true that we're commanded to meet. There's no doubt about that. And it's definitely true that what we do when we meet under these constraints, whatever they look like in the varying degrees of lockdown, is not ideal. But put the one in front of the other, and you end up with a different conclusion there. It's not that we're being forbidden from meeting. It's just that we can't meet in the way that we want to ideally. That's the difference. So it's kind of like that's okay, actually. It's okay not to meet in the way that you absolutely perfectly would like to meet all the time ever, in light of any sort of situation. Really, there is kind of a strike, especially when one of the messages that one can send out to an unbelieving world is that the church is more robust than this. We're not some mosque that stands or falls on the basis of minutia. We're not based on some sort of organization that can't withstand this level of malleability. Rather, what you're seeing at that point is as an exemplary, robust, organic, malleable thing, or living organism that almost is unfazed by these sorts of things, and is happy to work with the paradigm that be for the sake of others. That I think is a truer reflection of the church at large. So until that changes, I don't feel the weight of any of this.
I guess I'm feeling something different. First time around, agreed. But then some inconsistencies creep in. The church gets, in the recent lockdowns, churches, you were allowed to do an indoor sports event for 100, but churches were limited to 50.
Yeah.
Because there was a church event, which wasn't a church event. It was a Saturday conference where 6 churches came together. It wasn't just people regularly meeting on the Lord's Day. So just because the name church was on it, they decided that they were going to play it extra safe on our behalf at our expense. And then so our lockdown was changed because churches had been in the mix, but indoor sports events were not limited to the same numbers. So there's just these little things that are going on. And I'm not wanting to accuse them.
Emphasis on the little.
Yeah,
so the whole thing is like
but it's too much. Well, that's what I'm beginning to feel.
So it's almost like it boils down to some like poor bureaucracy, some faulty. So okay, so they made some bad calls and blah blah blah, and they didn't really know the ins and. At the end of the day, though, the reverse of that point is that the only time you're happy is when the government never makes mistakes and does it perfectly, which it seems like a little bit of a, wait a minute, that's not what the common grace thing is about. A management of a lack of ideal. It's the management of sin in an imperfect way.
I'm happy for governments to be imperfect, but what's probably not what I'm beginning to feel a lot more strongly is the necessity of the gathered church to meet when our particular government has chosen a no tolerance policy where other governments have not. This is not a necessity. This is a dumb view that we're being forced to submit to. And we're having to sacrifice.
Isn't that kind of the point, though? So basically, the opposite of that is that if you only submit to it when it's not dumb in your opinion, which is not really submission.
It does unfortunately come down to that.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a line.
I think that's symptomatic, I think, of what everybody thinks about submission anyway, in any sphere of life.
Mm-hmm.
So, wives, submit to your husbands when you don't think that they're is stupid.
Yeah.
You're free to submit, to not submit, obviously, if what they're saying is stupid in your opinion. Like that's
like this is
caveat.
the least controversial part of what I wanted to say.
All right. Well, on that point, though, as well, I think here's where we do need a little bit more of Rome and Babylon, and all those paradigms that we have in the Bible. Because, my goodness, here's where I would need a lot of convincing. Let's put it this way. I would need someone to show me. I agree with you 100% that, where freedom is there, take it. I think that's an established principle. It works all the way through in all sorts of situations.
That was my main point.
Yeah. And look, 100% agreed on that. But in terms of the other side of that, I suppose, where your freedom's not there, or when there is a real difficult submission to have to submit to or to yield to, even you are convinced it's not the right way. It's everything that you hate about submission rolled in one package, and yet it's not forcing you to sin, and it's not moving in that direction. Then I think we need to bring some of that Rome element again, because you just don't even see a sniff of a trace of Paul saying or Daniel saying that if you don't like it, or if you think it's kind of dumb, then you should really do something about
Masks
it.
are against your rights.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I get real, I'm like, I don't know. I think actually
Yeah.
we need to go back to the Bible.
I'm with you guys on all that stuff, and I've had to defend that against other people.
Yes, and
So-
the difficulty is that all these issues get rolled into one, don't
Yep,
they? So
they
you're
definitely
not
do.
just talking about gathering on church for church. You're not just talking about the nature of church. You're talking about your own individual freedoms to say yes or no to vaccines, yes or no to masks. There's a case for making those other kinds of arguments in other spheres. So individual Christians involved in politics or involved in policy making or involved in medical ethics and that kind of thing. I'm happy for that discussion to be going on. That's in a democratic society, we have our say and so on. But yeah, as Christians, I think when we're arguing,
the church
as
shouldn't be
Christians for a thing,
championing anti-vaccine passports.
Yeah, and you know one of the other things, just on that point before we lose it, you mentioned earlier the Google research. Everyone's a kind of the amateurism. I think that is an absolutely important point, because no, the church shouldn't be championing it, but neither should the person on Facebook or I think it is true. Everyone speaks like this. They're like, well, what about Wilberforce? What about? I'm like, well, let Wilberforce handle it today. Which is not you. I guarantee
Most people
you
shouldn't be heard. I stand by that statement.
I mean, like, bring me the Wilberforce. I'm happy to put that guy on a platform of some sort. But my goodness, Wilberforce was a specimen. Just so that we're all clear on that.
You have a right to your opinion, but we don't all need to hear it.
Like, no. That's whereas Wilberforce, I mean, look, he was well placed providentially. He knew what he was called to do. He had studied for it. He was ready for it. He wasn't going to make an absolute embarrassment of himself and Christianity.
Got some advice from John Newton on it.
Totally. So, I mean, at that level, amen. There's a paradigm to work with. I love the whole Wilberforce deal. But not everyone is a Wilberforce. And I think this is the,
but this is where surely this is where the two kingdom thing really comes into play, though.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Yeah.
Where are the Wilberforces of today?
Well, I feel like we have one in New Zealand. I feel like we have a guy, that I would commonly. I mean, okay, let me just qualify what I'm about to say. Wilberforce, it was kind of singular in many ways, but what I mean by that is someone who is consciously given himself to the task. He's in the political arena. That is his vocation. He is studied for the task. He is ready for the debate. He is going to make a difference where it actually matters. He's there in the amongst the parliamentarians and having the debates where it matters. And those guys who are Christians, I mean, that is their sphere of influence. They need to, to not shrink back from that is important.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just a very different thing. I mean, it poses very practical questions to us now. If we would make a difference, how do you plan on making a difference? Are we talking PTA? Are we talking Facebook?
No.
What exactly
Mike,
are you
obviously,
talking about?
what you do is you change your Facebook picture profile.
Yeah, to the little thing.
Praying for.
Yeah,
and that's praying for.
I'm not on Facebook. Sorry, guys.
Well,
how on earth can you be a citizen of this world and not be on Facebook?
Exactly.
Well, I'm kind of thankful for that, to be honest, Andrea. I mean, I didn't nick on Facebook.
Dangerous.
I feel like this is a small mercy that no one really appreciates.
Now, but just coming back to the vaccine passports. So I just carry on.
I just said that actually the whole two kingdom thing is that we do need people like that. So whether you've got one in New Zealand, but the whole thing of entering is you don't do it by mouthing off on Facebook or social media or ranting, just on the street corner or whatever.
It's hard work being a Wilberforce.
Yeah, you got to apply yourself. It's a calling. It's a vocation in the world, and some Christians will be called to that. And so, if you're a Christian, you feel strongly about this stuff. Well, consider entering as a politician, not as a politician of a Christian party, but as a politician in a party.
That's right. Go to school. Go to school and read big books about things that you don't want to read about for 4 years, and then you maybe can talk to something. Like I remember talking to a friend of mine.
I want to interrupt you.
Hey, I was talking. Except, I remember saying something to a buddy of mine, Jethro. If you're listening, bless you, man. Who's a doctor.
I miss Jethro.
Me too. Jethro. Me too. Every day. But we were one of the things. He would constantly medical bully me on things. Because because I'd be like delving into medical studies, whatever. He'd be like, "Why are you talking about that to me? You're not a doctor. You don't know how to interpret those things." And he wasn't trying to be like snobbish. He was just going, you don't have the the capacity
Right.
to understand what you're reading.
Stay in your lane.
It's like you're being, I want to talk to you, Mike, but I can't take you seriously right now. So you have to just, and I think just that whole,
Like
that
someone
whole
who's bought
idea.
a Vine's dictionary and they're trying to teach Greek.
Right, totally. I mean, we all feel it, right? And that's what you were talking about earlier, the amateurism thing. Just because someone can Google a study and read something, it's not what is involved. So I think a little bit of that you, on the one hand, humility, but on the other hand, just a healthy lack of confidence in your own abilities.
Integrity. Yeah.
Integrity maybe is the best way to put it. Yeah, would go a long way, because I think what I'm seeing a lot of, which makes me want to push in exactly the opposite direction you're pushing there, Nick, is I'm seeing people listen to podcasts, I'm seeing people read articles, and I'm going, and they're
Stop it.
basing big statements on things that are
Yeah.
completely unsubstantiated, and even if they are substantiated, the way they've relied on them is unsubstantiated. So it's just it's a lose-lose no matter how you look at it. So pastorally, that's where I feel obligated to just sort of chop down some tall poppies.
Well, let me jump in there. I'll leave my other train of thought, but something that I've been trying to encourage people in is integrity. I mean, we're willing to believe the worst about people we don't like, namely our government. We're willing to believe the worst about big pharma. So let's talk about big pharma and common grace. So big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies. The reason we have the antibiotics that we have is because these huge corporations have the resources to do millions of dollars in research so that we can have various types of medicine. Without those big companies with their big money, we wouldn't have the availability of the medicines that we have.
Yes.
And so people are just ready to write off big pharma as in for the economics. And of course, there will be a legitimate economic yield that they're looking for,
of course,
just to keep themselves afloat.
And levels of corruption, without a doubt.
This is where I challenge any Calvinist. Now, this is what I say to them. I said, you've got to remember, we believe in total depravity, not utter depravity.
Yes.
Yeah, our government is not Hitler. Our government is not the devil. Our government is not a bunch of people who are trying to do their utmost worst, who get together as a bunch of Freemasons, and there's a conspiracy theory, and all the governments of the world, including China, actually sit in on a secret council, and they've got a joint effort that they're doing to try and take over the world.
Yeah.
That's not going on. There is a devil behind who may be pulling the strings. But what we have is a government that is trying to obey the second commandment, love your neighbor, without the guide and restraints of the first commandment, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So they're doing bad in the name of good, and that's where communism comes from.
And that's what common grace is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the realm we live in. Amen.
Yeah.
Agreed. And so we want to recognize that and not stir up the anger and stir up the zeal for the cause in the name of just happily reading motives that we don't even know are there or not.
Yeah.
And so
I do feel that that's slightly the thing that's coming out of the Durban white circle, that they didn't state as much explicitly.
I felt they were a little more balanced. So yeah.
Well, no, I agree that they didn't state as much explicitly, but the tone of it is, and even in their article where it talks about at the end, everyone has the right to research and make their own decisions and that kind of thing. So they're openly advocating the kind of amateurism thing. Like suddenly, you become the expert in the field of medical ethics.
The democratization of knowledge. I mean, it's you want democratic freedoms. That's one of them. You just got to take the bad and the good.
I'm just saying. I think that's the tone of it coming out of those circles is although I don't think they're stating it outright. I think that's the tone of it.
And so maybe let's talk about the apologia stuff. So I mean, just let's start by saying something nice so that we can say bad things and people think we're still nice people.
Feedback sandwich.
Integrity, Nick. Stick integrity, brother.
I told everyone what my plan is. It's integrity.
All right. It's integrated.
So, I mean, these guys are wanting to be faithful pastors. They're living in a political environment that's American. And so the American Constitution stands at the base of all of their legal action. They believe they live in a Christian nation and a Christian worldview where they can appeal to its Christian history. And these guys are theonomists. And so they do make every civil matter a religious matter. And I think you probably saw in reading their statement how they blended those things together. And one of the things they're doing in their articles, they're basically writing an exemption form that they're signing as the elders of the church on behalf of one of the members of their church, stating the right that Christ is the Lord over every area and that every Christian is called to live according to their conscience. So from that point of view, there's nothing that we would disagree with. But then it's that merge of civil and religious issues. And I think what I would want to say to anyone who reads that and who likes that, I think there is a certain group, and we probably know the group that would like it already, a group that goes with all the same old stuff. Thing that I've been wanting to push back and say to them is, I've heard a lot of speaking about the heavy-handedness of the government that we need to put in check. And I've even used that language myself on this podcast. But I'm very aware of some people saying, I'm not going to get the vaccine simply because I want to hold back my government. And then I'm going to make it a religious issue so that I can strong arm my government back.
Yeah.
Not because I'm making this decision coram deo before the face of God, saying, God, is this a common grace gift? Is there a true conspiracy behind this? Is there any good in this? Do I believe the research or not? Am I being dictated by faith or by fear? So those are not the considerations that are going on. The consideration is a knee-jerk response to heavy-handedness by the government.
Yes.
And so it becomes a seditious act in the name of religion. And so I'm just going to ask people to search their hearts to ensure that that's not their motivation. I want to protect the right that each one of us has the opportunity to live coram deo before the face of God, but to stop mixing religious liberties with civil disobedience.
Yeah, I mean, we have such a opportunity for witness as well. And, I mean, that is always the burden of the New Testament, which I think is just so ignored in all the rhetoric. You have, if you're a slave, be a good slave so that you can be a good witness for the gospel, so that everyone can marvel at how on earth that could be true. If you're a slave master, then make your slave like your brother and subvert the whole thing from beginning to end and have everyone marvel as to how on earth that could be true. If you're being killed and yet you're opening your arms in love to those who are killing you, let everyone marvel how that can be true. This is whenever there's a injustice, the answer is not to make it just. That's heaven. That's the whole fundamental difference. The answer is to ask how we can, in that mold, show forth this otherworldly reality, which is not to undermine all those other principles we've been discussing tonight, but that is certainly a central religious principle that we hold to. And it's not just about meeting, it's not just about meeting together on Sunday. It's about meeting together to be the church, to worship and to be a witness to the world. There's a whole big thing that we're doing there. We're meeting not out of angst for our government. You're not doing Jesus any favors you're not doing him favors anyway, but you know what I mean? You're not sort of helping.
We don't want to have church as a political statement.
Right. Yeah, you are like coming to church, and so one of the things that does tick me off a little bit is when I see that all of a sudden people that just weren't going to church at all, now all of a sudden they're going to church and they want to go to church and they're the ones up in arms about things. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, we go to church and we've got to check our hearts. That is automatically, involved. You don't just get away with going to church. If anything, that's blanket condemnation. If you look at Old Testament and the way God hates all our shows. So at the end of the day, that's got to factor in more than it has been. So I'd say that. That focal point of witness. The other thing is theology of common grace. We mentioned that implicitly tonight. Like, do you believe it or don't you? There are some crazy groups of Christians out there that don't believe in common grace, the hyper-covenantalists, the hyper-Calvinists, and whoever else you want to add to that crew. They have a reason for not believing in common grace, and they have a whole sequence of implications for that I guarantee you most people would not be willing to embrace, including things like post-millennialism and being up in arms with the sword. So figure out what the Bible says. Just actually take a look at what you think the Bible says, interpret the Bible, and then live consistently. Coming back to your point of integrity there, live consistently in an integrated manner in all of your Christian life and approach this situation like you would another situation, which is to start on what you believe the Bible says. So fine, if you're going to tell me you don't believe the Bible talks about common grace for an iota, okay, go right ahead. You've got your crew, you've even got a denomination waiting to receive you. But if you do believe in common grace, that must have some implications. So there's that, the theology, the ironing out. And then I think the third prong here is just a little dose of humility in terms of the amateurism thing, and just, again, like I think one of the things I will often talk about, and I think, I remember going through this myself. I remember the anti-intellectualism, it reminds me so much. This anti-specialist mentality is like so much like an anti-intellectual mentality, in that we don't want anyone to tell us how to read our Bibles, or what translation or whatever. And the whole time we're holding English translations up, that are based on textual critic renditions of years of scholarly treatments on various manuscripts. It's just the most hypocritical and, just nonsensical way to approach the thing. You have to live consistently. It's like the hippie that's going, hey, listen, I am, I'm living on the land, and then going to shop at Walmart just to get his essentials. It's like you got to make a decision on this thing. To live like that is like, it's a hypocrite. Specialism is a thing. You have to trust that the pilot when you fly in the plane. It's just, there is a matter of faith.
But if you read a Google
No,
article,
I think
you
we
could
should
be a
have a
pilot
vote
too.
on how the plane ought to be flown.
we'll just have a go, or it just doesn't
I
work.
think we
like
should
that.
start a social media forum where we could all give our opinion to the pilot on how the plane.
Now you have the choice to not get in the plane, right? You do have that choice, but then make sure it's consistent.
Can I derail you there, Mike? I wanted to come back to something that Andre said earlier, and it's Andre, you made the comment about there's nothing theologically wrong with wearing a mask in church. So, I think that's worth talking about. Someone made the comment to me that isn't the government requiring a mask for worship, them commanding something with regards to worship, and therefore violating the regulative principle. So I don't know if you've come across that, but that's an argument that I've come across.
Wouldn't be my take on the regulative principle at all. So
substance, because the elements, the regulative principle involves the elements of worship, not the circumstances.
Yeah,
and that's a very clear thing.
Yeah, so if your government required that you have a fire escape in your building, if your government required that you have a disabled toilet in your building, if your government required that for the sake of health, that you have hand sanitizers or a certain number of toilets, or that you wear a face mask, we wouldn't see this as hindering any of the means of grace.
No, but there is, but seriously, if your government is saying, please guys, rightly or wrongly, with or without evidence, stupidly or not, saying, please wear a mask, it's all we can think to do to help at the moment. We just really appreciate if everyone wore a mask when they're in public places for the next however so long. It's like
they're not digging into your regulative principle, bro.
Yeah, and they're not having a go at your rights as an individual. Surely we have the common sense to know that in certain circumstances we all need to pull together and make sacrifices. It's not like forever and ever and ever and ever you have to wear this mask now, or you're going to be shot dead. It's just not like that.
That's what you say now, Andre.
Well, even if it was, it's not going to be true of heaven. We will not have to wear masks in heaven.
We don't push back at our government now. They're going to take advantage of the situation.
My goodness, like we're talking to John Owen. Have you got guns in the basement already? Is that what's happening, dude? Impossible, incorrigible.
Also, like if the government does want to go down that line, I had to break it to someone, but ain't nobody going to stop it.
Yeah,
they're only going to stop it when the UN gets involved, because they've killed so many people trying to get you to wear masks, which, by the way, is a ridiculous scenario. Like the New Zealand government just rolling out the tanks to get people to wear masks. Like, it's just not going to happen. So
first, we need to get tanks. That's the first thing we need will be a tank.
Well, I think New Zealand has probably learned its lesson. So when we went into the last lockdown, they did not mandate masks for church. They did not say we could not sing. In fact, they even allowed us to have necessary religious ceremonies like baptism and the Lord's Supper. So I'm wondering if they've taken a page, they've learned a few lessons from what happened in the UK and America, and eased some of the difficulties.
For sure. Because to be honest, I really don't want to come across the guy that's like just a complete pushover here. But like I read through these rules, these lockdown rules, and I'm just going, how eminently reasonable of them. Yeah, I'm so that's my instinct. Well, like, what's wrong with me? Everyone's complaining. I'm like, I find myself like really vexed about it because I'm like, wow,
how's this for unreasonable, Mike? There's not one case on the South Island, and yet we all have to wear masks.
Yeah, but it's like, dude,
there's not one case on the South Island.
We're all,
but
we're all
you guys
playing
You
have to
only
pretend,
let
let
me
pretend.
in at
people
some
in a
point.
building.
I'm not able to visit my family. You've got to let me in at some point. Some point,
just
you're gonna have
like-
to let foreigners into your
It's fun
island.
to let people in, but it's also fun to play lockdown, and pretend Corona. We just, it's our favorite game, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We got like all like,
Yeah, I
all
think the
busy
problem
buddies.
is you can't realistically you can't have one thing for the North Island, one thing for the South Island, can you?
No, I mean,
Well, we have.
and you know
how's
what?
that gonna
And you know
work?
what?
How
We've
you
had
gonna
That,
different lockdown
enforce that?
scenarios.
but I mean,
The
okay,
vaccine
but that's
stops
all like a
hospitalization, so all of that
political
stuff's-
question. That's like
Exactly,
how
exactly.
best to administer your country. You know, that doesn't matter really in terms of what we're talking about as those who are thinking about how we are to respond to imperfect government.
Yeah.
So I just keep coming back to that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
mean,
keep
it's
coming
quite
back to, in the
conceivable
case
that
of an emergency, okay, but we're not in that. It's not that
Yes, but-
emergency case anymore.
But as is the case with the virus, it's perfectly understandable that the government will want to say we don't want to get to the point where we're in an emergency. So if we can lock it down now and stop from, I mean, it's a marvel really. That I mean, I know you've got more sheep than people, and so it's not that difficult. But the reality is that the way a virus works is if you miss it somewhere, it's gone, and it's going to circulate around the population, before you can say howdly doodly, and then next thing you know, you have got hospitals filled with things. And so I'm not saying that would happen or that could have happened. I haven't seen the stats. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying that if I was in the government, you could see
Yep.
that would be a reasonable
And
take
I'm
to take.
sympathetic to that, but I'm also really feeling my responsibility as a pastor to gather the church.
Yeah.
I want the government to do their job.
Have they given you an end
No,
of
but we can gather. This is the whole weird thing about this. We're allowed to gather. We're totally
Now
allowed
we
to
are.
gather. Well, I mean,
Auckland is-
okay, we were in lockdown for
Yeah.
a week. Just a way to like put this into perspective. Nick just
Weeks.
had to stay at home one Sunday. This is what all this is about.
Whatever.
no, but it's not. I mean, is it that big? Like, I understand that there's another principle.
This reminds me of when we went to Singapore. Do you want me to tell the story?
Go ahead, brother. Where we didn't.
We
spoon
just
on
got
the
back
bed
from
together.
India. Nick and I was just in India, and it's like it's crazy in India, right? And you see a lot of poverty, and it's full on. It just reminds you of what life's all about. And then you get on the plane, and then you go to Singapore, and you arrive in
You rent a
Singapore. and
room so you can have a nap while you wait for the next flight.
Well, we got a nice little hotel just to get a bite to eat, get a shower, because I mean it's been a while since we've entered into the modern
Toilet
conveniences
roll, yeah, exactly.
like Singapore, the Singapore affords, and it's gleaming. It's like a celestial city of sorts. It's just pretty, and there's no dirt anywhere. It's just fantastic. So I'm just like enjoying the real blessing that is, right? And thankful that we were able to have that little reprise before heading back.
And I'm seeing the Lamborghini and the Ferrari and the Mercedes.
So Nick
and the
just grew
flippin' Rolls Royce.
quieter and quieter and quieter until eventually he wouldn't even talk to me, And then we just wanted to have a little, and he was like vexed. He was like St. Francis of Assisi, just walking around like freaking out, about to tear his clothes off and run naked
like
down the
Paul in
street.
Athens.
Torn and his ash on
Yeah.
his head.
And he's
Paul
just
in Athens.
all I could hear coming from the mumble of his breath was worldliness.
They had these gold medallions in the pavement.
I mean, like, I'm fine with that. I totally dig gold medallions. So and then we had a little nap. So I like had this really awesome, like, comfy bed, and I'm like having a nap, and Nick's on the floor sleeping when I wake
Oh
up.
my goodness.
Dude, it's real with Nick. It's real, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Keep it real, Nick.
just so that everyone can know, this is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with your normal guy who's like a little bit ticked off. If Nick goes rogue, everyone's going to be in trouble. We all have to hold him back on the two kingdom paradigm. Every one of us. It's going to be otherwise we are going to be, he's going to start his own podcast. I'm telling you. No, you won't. You won't actually do it
One
because-
kingdom sojourn.
what the true church of the one
The
kingdom.
United Kingdom sojourn.
But on another note, you can easily see how this issue has the potential to distract churches from actually just cracking on with the
Absolutely.
ministry of the gospel.
Absolutely.
Everything's become political. Yeah.
Everything is so political, and it is. I blame it on America. It's mainly their fault. Like the guys in the UK and I'm presuming New Zealand as well. Like we're mainly getting ticked off because of all the things the guys in the States are saying about it. I
It's
mean,
very
nobody-
political
It's
statement.
super political, and we like those guys, and we listen to some of those head honchos perhaps a little bit too much. And I think that we have to be very, very careful that this doesn't so absorb us at an emotional level, at the level of our energy, at the level of our focus, that actually we become a kind of set the church free from Babylon
exactly
mission ministry, rather than a let's continue to proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God.
Man, seriously. And now, I mean, oh my goodness, you know, that's the thing. It's like that is the fundamental issue that we're dealing with right now. It's like the church cannot lose its way on this point, because then it just becomes another bickering group in the city of man. You know, stay altar oriented as a community, no matter how bad, you know, the pre-flood situation is going to look like. You know, we have to stay completely focused on that mission that we have. And you know, it's like you could go around the bush on this. You could do all sorts of things. I mean, you think about you know, it's all those arguments against theocracy at some level, against theonomy at least at some level, that are just kind of resurfacing and being hit at from different angles. But you know, fundamentally, the positive point here is that this is why it's worth fighting for, because it's just so easy to just get caught in the landscape, because a lot of churches don't have that undergirding to keep them focused on this point. I would say the one thing a two-age eschatology and a two-kingdom you know, view of this world and common grace has to offer is this very point. You know, so this is what I'm saying, guys, is that this is our time to shine.
Arise, shine, for your light has come. Your light has come.
Well, there we go. Got our ratings back. On the map again. 2H Sojourner. There we go.
1.5 hour mega.
I'm pretty sure that this will do its rounds. So there we go. Happy to please.
You now have all the answers.
Never going to talk about anything practical again.
America's going to love you, Nick. It's not going to like Mike and I that much.
That's fine. But so they thought of the prophets before them. You know, how's that?
I thought a prophet was not meant to be accepted in his own town.
Yeah, well, I think that's happened
not by
like
the whole
world. I think Nick totally didn't accept me.
My hometown.
It's time to go. It's time to go. It really is time to go. All right.
Nick's manifesting.
Okay.
Tired. Every time you say a word, it links to a song.
Won't be able to stop it now. Don't stop me now.
Happen again.